So last week we started the series called Metamorphosis, and we were speaking in the context of understanding what metamorphosis means majorly. And we looked at the book of Romans, right? So we looked at the book of Romans chapter 12 verses 1 and 2. And the Bible speaking in the book of Romans chapter 12 verses 1 and 2 says that we should be, brethren, I beseech you, therefore by the mercies of God, right, that we should present ourselves as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, and this is, our good, acceptable, and perfect will. And last week we were able to establish that there are three forms or three degrees to God's will. There is the good will of God, there is the acceptable will of God, and there is the perfect will of God. And we said that one of the things that we want to get everybody into is to move everybody from staying in the good will of God to the perfect will of God. And we established that it's a journey. So we gave an example of all this, should a Christian drink alcohol? Should a Christian do this one? Can a Christian marry an unbeliever? All those questions are when people are still dealing with, or is it good to eat salami? All those kind of questions that people ask. When you are still asking the question of good, is this thing good? That means that you are still at the good level. You still want to understand the good, but that's not where you should be as a experienced believer. It's okay if you just give your life to Christ and you're asking that. It's okay if you have not gone through discipleship and you're asking that. We can pardon that. But as you mature, you should actually go for the perfect will of God, because as Christ is formed in you, you have the mind of Christ. So anybody that has the mind of Christ means that you can think like Christ. So if I have you, it's like how they say I get you for mind, right? If someone has the mind of somebody, that means that the person thinks like that person. The person walks like that person. Basically, you know how that person will react. Just like we have our parents, there are some things that you will do and like that. You can already predict how your mother, how your father, how your spouse, how your partner, or how your friend is going to react. So that's basically what it means to have the mind of Christ. So when we have the mind of Christ, we can already know what Christ will do. So when people ask the question of what would Jesus do, it's because the person has not yet come to the consciousness or to the realization of the mind of Christ that they have. The way you think is the way Christ will think in that situation. If you are conscious that you have the mind of Christ. So the idea is to move us from the good will to the perfect will. Then we move to the second verse, which began to tell us that we should transform ourselves by the renewing of the mind. And that's where we said the metamorphosis word came. That the idea is to transform our mind, right? So that we can be knowledgeable. And last week we now focused on a name, right? So we focused on names and we began to explain and explore what is encoded in a name. We went to learn about the man that God created and why name is very important. And we said that the man that the Bible gave us a description of, Adam, was already put in the garden to learn how to create before God gave him a name. And we said Adam was already formed before they gave him a name. So we said God only gives name to formed men. Men who have allowed themselves to go through his pruning. So when we say formed, and when we say God has given you a name, most times we think about these things about earthly riches. Yeah, some of them can be signs, but that's not what it means to have a name. Right? When God forms you and he gives you a name, it means that he gives you an assignment. They don't spend naira and dollar in heaven. So you cannot say that when God was, even in the days of Adam and Abraham, money was not something that was a major thing that time. The way he calculated wealth was not in naira, it was in cattle, it was in cattle, it was in cows, it was in lambs, it was all of those things. That was how they saw as God blessed them. It wasn't money that they had in their account. So there was no money in their account, right? So basically, the blessing that time was a spiritual blessing. It was just that it was also lucky by providence and from the knowledge that God gave him to actually also have a lot of cattle and a lot of so he was able to succeed in agriculture basically. But then we must understand that God gives names to only men that have been formed. So those were the things that were established last week. So now, today we began, last week I introduced us into what we're going to be discussing today, which is the subject of passion and assignment. Purpose and assignment, basically. So I titled it Purpose and Assignment. And I think that many times people confuse that thing. And I know many people who are stuck in life today because they are all in think of, oh, this is my purpose, this is my purpose, this is my passion, this is my passion. And I think that it is very important for us today to establish the distinction between purpose and assignment. Then, hopefully by God's grace, if Jesus has not yet come, by next week I will be able to explain to us how to live a life of purpose and how to live a life that fulfills all the assignment that God has given. So when God creates a man and He gives him a name, the name of a man describes the purpose of that man. So for example, if I create something, if I create this speaker that we have here in today's service, the purpose of this speaker is to amplify the sound that comes out from my mouth. So meaning that this speaker has the capacity to reach, let's say, 300 people, and it has the capacity to convey what I have said to 300 people and travel far than my voice will, than my natural voice without the help of the speaker and the microphone. So that means that the purpose of this speaker is to amplify. The message that the speaker will amplify per time can be different. Meaning, I'm teaching purpose and assignment today, but tomorrow if I'm teaching the message of God, it's the same thing that I'm saying in the message of God that is going to amplify. If tomorrow I come and say power, healings, miracles, all of those kind of things, its purpose is to amplify. So whatever message and whatever assignment, that if it's the assignment it is supposed to do today is to amplify Afro gospel, that is the assignment for today, but the purpose is to amplify. So many times people confuse their purpose for their assignment. So this speaker now can decide and say, okay, I want to, he can confuse his purpose for his assignment and say, my purpose is to just amplify mercy. So anytime you come with power, anytime you come with Afro gospel, anytime you come with other things, he's not going to accept it because he said that that's not my purpose. My purpose is to amplify mercy. And that's not true. Your purpose is to amplify sound. Your assignment can change per time. It might be that the assignment that you have today is to amplify purpose and assignment sermon. Tomorrow, I can come here and begin to rap. On Thursday, I can come here and say I want to worship and begin to release chant and sound. Your purpose does not change. Your assignment will vary per time and per season. So we can look at certain examples in the Bible and people that we saw. It was very easy to understand that someone like Joseph, when he had that dream, right, as a child, he said that, he had a dream, he saw the moon, he saw stars around it, and he saw basically they were bowing to one and all of that. Basically, there was an understanding that he was going to become a star. There was an understanding that he was going to be successful. And there was an understanding from that purpose. And basically, what God was trying to do with Joseph was that you are going to be a solution provider. So because in the makeup of Joseph is that he's going to be a solution provider, his assignment per time changed. At some point, he was in Potiphar's house as the chief servant, providing solutions, administering things. At some point, he was in the prison, still solving other people's problems, interpreting other people's dreams, until he got to the place of Pharaoh and became prime minister, still solving the problem of the nation. His purpose in life was basically to solve problems. But the assignment could change. During the time that he was with his father, he was solving problems. He was learning farming. He was basically the entire purpose of his life was to solve problems. So his assignment per time changed. So that's why I look at people when they say, the reason I'm not giving my energy to this, the reason I'm failing at this, the reason I'm not successful at this job I'm doing is because I'm not passionate about it. I say that's not true. It's because you have not discovered your purpose. Because it didn't matter where Joseph was, he shined. He was the best as a servant. He was the most respected. in the prison until he became prime minister. Everywhere he was, that excellence showed. So now, if we look at another person, Moses, in the purpose of Moses was to deliver people from oppression. That's why you notice that at some point when he was 40, he was always having questions. He couldn't withstand oppression. That's why he killed someone in the process. And he had to flee from Egypt. But his purpose was majorly to deliver people from oppression. So anything that looks like oppression, you will see Moses show up there and say, I can't withstand this. No, you cannot cheat these people. So anything that looks like people are suffering, people are complaining. That's why you notice that anytime the children of Israel begin to complain, you go and meet God. These people are already complaining. I need to solve it because he couldn't stand them being oppressed. That's why when they were murmuring in the last time and God said, just point the stick, and he went to strike it. It's because of his passion, his purpose. He cannot withstand people murmuring, people uncomfortable. That's what landed him in exile the first time. And it took God 40 years to deal with him, to send him back to Pharaoh to lead people out of Israel. His assignment varied per time. What the assignment looked like when God called him in burning bush experience and all of that was to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. That was what his assignment looked like in that time. But it was not the same skill set that it takes to lead people out of Egypt that it would take to take them through the journey to the promised land. His leadership style had to change. Now there is no Pharaoh that can go and tell let my people go. Now it is you. Now you have brought people out of Egypt. Now you have to remove Egypt out of the minds of people. Because even though Pharaoh is dead and Pharaoh has been swallowed in the sea, Pharaoh is still in their head. So it's a different kind of so the oppression now that was now happening to the children of Israel was the oppression of the mind. So the next oppression was the oppression of the mind. So this guy is like, oh my God, how do I ensure that these people don't get... They are still thinking like civil servants, because the Israelites were like basically civil servants in Egypt. That's why when Moses went to meet Pharaoh and said, let my people go, he commanded that they should increase their work hours. It's because they have too much time on their hands, that's why they are worshiping. The idea was that he was going to increase the work that they were doing, increase everything that they are doing, until they can no longer worship God again. And Moses wasn't having it. So the purpose of Moses was basically simple. The purpose of Moses was to bring people out of oppression. His purpose was majorly to deliver the oppressed. That was his purpose. So the purpose he had was majorly to deliver the oppressed. But time and time again, we saw him carry out various assignments. The first assignment was, okay, let me go and find Aaron. Right? Let me bring people out of Egypt. Now let's provide revenue. Now let's lead. Let me bring the 10 commandments. Let me do this one. Let me do that one. Basically, his assignments per time changed. But if you look at every single assignment that he did, was to deliver them from worshiping other idols, was to deliver them from selfishness, was to deliver them of moment. Like, he was always a deliverer. All I'm trying to say is that don't mistake your purpose for your assignment, and don't mistake your assignment for your purpose. Your assignment will always change. Your assignment will always change. I've always known that one of the things that I have as my major purpose in life is to bring clarities to individuals and institutions. So I must give clarity to people. There's no way you will speak to me and there will not be value or value or illumination of mind, or you will not get inspired with something. I knew from scratch that was it. So it was easy for me to say, okay, I wanted to become a teacher. At that time, it made sense. It was very easy for me to say, you know what, this is the next thing I'm going to do. This is now I'm pastoring, basically still providing clarity to show people the way. Assignments will change per time. Purpose will not. Purpose will not. Whatever, tomorrow I can live here now and build a tech product and go and build maybe another version of Google Maps that guys will see clarity. All I'm just saying is that assignments will always change. And with a good work comes more work. The reward of a very great work is more work. So meaning that God gives more assignments so that you can live your purpose to the fullest. Elijah was a prophet that lived a life of taking the assignment that God has given him seriously. That's why in the realm of the spirit, there's such thing called, I was teaching us with that name, the spirit of Elijah. Basically because he lived to the fullest God's purpose for him. So the only way our name can stand the test of time is if we carry out the assignments that God has given us diligently up until the time where we can say, all that you have given me, I used. So that story of talent will not be like you traded every single thing. It's assignment. It's assignment that allows us to do that. So let's check even like very senior men of God in this country. Like you will notice that the ones that have very large successes, they are the people that every single time they had an assignment, they did it genuinely. I remember growing up, I used to watch Dr. Chris Oyakhilome was an evangelist. I used to see him do healing crusades. He was an evangelist. Later he transitioned. It was like God was calling. After years of being an evangelist, he transitioned and said God was calling him to build a church. He built a church. After some point he said, God was calling him to start building businesses. Like they have many banks in this country, they are owned by their church, like TV stations. Like they are like basically the purpose is still the same. The assignment per time is just different. The assignment per time is just different. Everybody has different assignments, and how you do one assignment will determine how you'll be given another one, and if you'll be given another. And one thing I realized about God is that if you don't do the assignment that is in your heart very well, you will not move to the next class and you will not move to the next lesson. So you see some people in a particular situation for years because they have refused to learn and they have refused to move past the assignment that they have. So we must learn as God's people to give ourselves, to give our whole self to the assignment that God has given us. Because there is a great difference between our purpose and our assignment. We must ensure that, okay, this thing that God has given me to do at this point, this thing that God has given me to do in this time, I want to do it wholeheartedly. I want to do it with my whole self, with my energy, so that I can move to the next thing. Because purpose is only determined at the end. I know many times people are like, I want to know my purpose. I want to know everything that God has for me. And you might not be able to know everything that God has for you. A man that has lived a life of purpose is a man that takes the assignment God has given him one step at a time. So if you can commit to taking the assignment of God one step at a time, you will live a life of purpose. A life of purpose is inevitable. A life of purpose is inevitable if you can take the ordinances of Christ one step at a time. So that's really what all of this is about. That's really what the difference between purpose and assignment in God is about. That's the reason he said that today. From last week, I recommend last week messages for anyone who is listening, that we want to first establish the difference between purpose and assignment, so that I understand that, okay, this thing that I'm doing now, this thing that God has put in my hands now, is purpose for my life, and the thing that I'll be doing after is the assignment. So the goal is that these assignments that God has put in my hand, I want to do it wholeheartedly. I want to do it till the end. That's the thing. Our purpose is God that gives purpose. Our assignments change. So that job that you have right now, that project that you are working right now, that service that God has put in your heart right now, that is your assignment. Do it well so that you can move to the next phase. I know, yes, God has said, this is what I want you to do. But what you are doing right now does not look at like it. It is because God is giving you an assignment, and you are supposed to take that assignment seriously so that you can move to the next level. So what we are going to pray for right now is strength for our assignment. And for those of us maybe that we have been distracted from the assignment that is supposed to push us closer to purpose, we're going to be praying to God to reveal our assignment to us. Because there is living a life of purpose and there is living a life. A life of purpose is a life that takes the assignment and the instructions of God wholeheartedly. A life of purpose is a life that rests solely on obedience, instructions. So God tells you to go and volunteer in this place, you volunteer. God tells you to start content creation and start making videos to enlighten people, you do it. God basically, and that's a word for someone, like, God basically giving you instructions to say, I want you to educate people, I want you to do this, I want you to step into the next phase of your life. But this is what it might not look like where God has shown you, but God is the master planner. It is the first step in the right direction. You think that, if I do this, I'll get to where God showed me. But no. God tells you, I'm going to take you to this place, but this is how I want you to start. Because He knows. Prophecy had already gone always before David. But God knew that even when Saul came to anoint him years ago, God knew that one of the ways he would become king is that first you have to fight this guy called Goliath. Is that you have to fight the lion. Is that you have to look after sheep. Is that you have to. Do you get? Like, basically, he was going through all of this. But God knew, honestly, because the dumb people talk, say I will become king. So let me just continue to just work with my dad. One day like that, the king and the one for the next king, and God will say this. No, that's not how it works. All I'm saying is that how you think your purpose will play out, most likely is not how it will play out. Most of the time, allow God to give you instructions that you follow every now and then. Taking His instructions per time, one step at a time, and you will see everything change. You will see everything transform. You will see that when you listen to God's instructions, you will see that your life will begin to look like it. Even if you are not earning much, you are happy. You know that you are getting closer. You know you are getting closer. Because many times, there's a feeling of, I don't know what I'm doing. Because we always feel like every assignment that we do must look like where we are going. And that's wrong. I remember, how would you have imagined that what they were teaching you in maybe kindergarten on how to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in figures would later become something that you will require to solve mathematics in your West African examination, your secondary school examination? Now you're seeing mathematics, you're seeing 10 plus 10 and you're seeing 20. But don't forget that 10 plus 10, 20 that you could do in your head, right, was because someone somewhere was just teaching you to write figure 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Literally like a whole 40 pages. It's just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 that you were writing. And that was your assignment. At that point, it didn't look like they were teaching you that one so that you could pass WAEC in future. But basically, the reason they were doing that was that we want to teach. It will not look, all I'm telling you is that in the journey of living a life of purpose, sometimes your assignments will not look like it. Sometimes it will not look like it. Because more often than not, I've realized that the raw materials for making any products does not always look like a finished product. So for example, if you see me with flour that is dry, and you see me with butter, you might be asking me how a cake come out of this thing. Flour does not look like cake. Butter does not look like cake. But if I tell you to first go and buy butter, you'll be like, what? Is it not cake that we want? Why am I buying butter? If I tell you to go and buy sugar, you'll be like, and you are just judging it by just looking at the color of the cake. You're like, what? The sugar is white. Like, this is a chocolate cake. Like, this is not the color. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So, the products and the assignments, because the assignments, so for example, when I tell you, break the eggs, remove the yolk, all of those kind of things, be like, how is this taking me closer to a cake? The assignment, I tell you, okay, so now you have the batter. No, now, so keep mixing. You are going to be like, this process does not look like where I am going. It's this cake I want to eat. Why are you asking me to turn this thing with the ladder? Because the instruction is that the assignment will not always look like the purpose. But it is in the assignments that the purpose is found. It is in the mixing of all these things very well in the right proportion. Like I said, in the right proportion. So don't stay too long on an assignment. It can spoil the end product. So it is in the process of making these things that you now go and bake, and cake now comes out. So I know, yes, we want to live a life of purpose, but a life of purpose is a life of assignment. That's what I've come to tell you. A life of purpose is a life of assignment. So we're going to pray 2 prayers, and Joshua will be leading us in that prayer. We'll pray that prayer, and I want everybody to just fellowship, just share questions and all that, because I have to go somewhere. But the answers are, the prayers are two things, and you continue as the Lord leads them. The thing is very simple. Lord, strengthen me to do the assignments, especially the assignments that we struggle with. Lord, strengthen me to do these assignments. It doesn't look like it makes sense, but because hand is already paying me from turning the batter. But it's cake that I really want to eat. Like, hand is already paying me with this thing, and there's no whiskey machine. There's no machine that is going to mix it for you. You have to go through it. You don't like breaking the eggs, but like you have to. So you ask for the assignments, because one thing that the Lord was showing me as I was preparing for this service, and for everyone who listens to this later, is that the Lord is telling that people are in seasons where they don't really understand what's going on. Basically, people ask what's going on to you, like I said, I don't know. If you really want to tell yourself the truth, you don't know what is going on. And that's just the truth. You don't know what is going on because you don't know how to bake a cake. The person who is baking the cake is God. He's telling you just be adding. You just be mixing. You will not know what is going on. But you just want to be ensured that at least you are hearing his instructions. So that when he tells you to stop, you stop and move on to the next. Because in the process of baking a cake, there are a lot of tasks. The same thing as a lot of assignments. So we must understand that. So we are going to pray for strength. We're going to ask God to review our assignments to us in case we are not doing the right thing. In case we are focusing on the wrong thing. Imagine that I'm baking a cake now, right? I'm now focusing on the eggshells. Is that really what I'm supposed to focus on? Because we can major on the minor. And when everybody sees you with eggs, they will ask you, are you not trying to bake a cake? You say yes. Because they know that eggs are part of the ingredients for cake. So they will not tell you that you are wrong. And they will not know that the reason you are playing with shells is because you don't know the next step. So sometimes some of us have spent too much time doing a particular assignment because we don't know the next one. So we're going to ask God to open our eyes and to open our ears, open our spirit, open our heart, to show us the next thing and the thing that we're supposed to be doing right now. It will not always look like it, but it's because God wants to do something. It will not always look like where God is taking you to, but it's because God is taking you somewhere. You will not know what is required. David will be thinking, oh my God, I could have just allowed this lion to just kill one. See, the thing is that lions cannot kill 10 animals at the same time. I've realized this with lions, only one you attack. It's sheep now. If he goes back home and says, Daddy, if you see the lion that I saw today, thank God that my life was saved. Thank God that the lion did not kill. Should be just one. They will even give thanksgiving. But you know what? He did not do that. He fought it because that was his assignment. Sometimes your assignments might look unnecessary. Sometimes your assignment can be like hard labor. I'm very sure that fighting a lion is not easy. You will have marks because the lion might have used his claws. Because he said he fought. There's nobody that fights that doesn't get any form of injury. Like boxers, even I win, but my face would have been. There's no way you not correct a punch or two. So imagine what it like. And I've seen lions and tigers. I've seen this. They are very heavy stuff. and they can pounce on him. He will go home with body pains. He will go home with mark and scratch that he would think that this thing was not necessary. So another thing that the Lord told me finally, just because this is also a very prophetic time. Many of us are doing things that we feel like it's not necessary, but we know that we have to keep doing it. We know we have to do it. You are doing things that doesn't feel necessary. It is because you will need that thing for your purpose. God knows that if you can defeat lions today, so tomorrow the sage come and defeat Goliath. Goliath is bigger than the lion too was bigger than you. Like, who is this one that concerned you? You need it. That's what I'm saying. But you will not know because your life is not in your hands and because you didn't make yourself. So that's why I'm going to ask for strength. And I'm going to ask God to open your eyes to show you what you should be doing now. Every time I pray that prayer, no matter how aligned I think I am, every time I pray that prayer, God open my eyes to show me what I'm supposed to be doing. I discover one thing that I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not. Because God is interested in making something out of us. So that's just going to be our prayer. Lord, strengthen me. Lord, what am I supposed to be doing now? Make something out of me. I am ready to do your assignment. I am ready to do your will. In the name of Jesus.